Hi, this is Josh with the Factor Care Podcast with Steven again. And today we're joined by Ashley Costello, who is the Executive Director of LHF.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming. We've been bugging Ashley to come in for a little bit, and finally were able to drag her in.
Yes, thank you.
So what exactly, we'll just start with the fundamentals, LHF itself.
Yep.
What is its function? How does it work in the community?
So the Louisiana Hemophilia Foundation, for anybody who doesn't know what LHF stands for, is a nonprofit organization that serves the bleeding disorders community of the whole state of Louisiana. Yeah. So we provide services and education all for free to anybody with a diagnosed bleeding disorder. It doesn't have to be just hemophilia, even though that's in our name. It can be any bleeding disorder.
Well, I didn't know that. So, of the services you provide, how does one go about reaching out to you for those services? Are there specific things that they can apply for? Or
yeah, absolutely. So we provide lots of different services. Some have to be applied for, and some are just available. So I'll try to see if I can remember them all in my memory. Normally, I have a brochure to look at, but so first is education. We offer education throughout the year, different kind of programming. What we have coming up next is a men's retreat. We do an advocacy day. We do a women's retreat. We do teen programming. We have an annual meeting every fall that's open up to the entire family. So just lots of different educational programming throughout the year. And when those come up, we usually send out an email or a social media blast to let people know, and you can register for each one of those events as they come up. Again, those are free to anybody with a bleeding disorder, even if there's a hotel stay involved. All of those
sponsored.
Yes,
so we've
those
been
are sponsored.
Steve and I have both been to a couple of dinners that you guys have put on, which have been amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's informative. I think you did one recently with Hemogenics, and I mean, it's just information that a lot of hemophiliacs like ourselves that are contemplating, hey, This is the future. Do we want to join in now or not? I mean, this is where you get your your questions answered.
Correct. Yeah. So the dinner programs are normally industry sponsored. So if one of our industry partners has a topic that they really want to get out to the community, we do that in the form of a dinner program. And those are just kind of sprinkled throughout the year whenever they want to schedule them. And same thing, we send out email and social blasts to let people know about those. So education is one. Is really that we'll provide assistance with anything that we can connect to access to care. So that could be rent, that could be electricity. I'll try to think of some specific examples. We just helped someone with a refrigerator. They wanted a mini fridge to keep their medicine in that they couldn't afford on their own. So we purchased that for them. We do like shoes, therapeutic, those arthritic shoes, Hoka's or whatever the brand name. People. They're expensive sometimes, and people can't afford $200 for a pair of shoes, but we'll cover that price. Anything that we can connect to access to care, we can cover. And again, it's up to $1,000 per family per year.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and there's an application for that people fill out online on our website.
Are there income requirements associated with that, or is anyone in need?
It's really anyone in need. We do request income on the form, but you don't have to prove any income. You don't have to submit any documents to prove your income. It's kind of we take your word for what you say your income is. Mm-hmm. We're, of course, only looking to kind of help the people who need the help, and just taking on faith that those are the people who are applying, for the help, or it's because they actually need it. So we don't turn people down very often.
Well, I will say that's important to know, because there's so many people out there that they may be considered not lower class, but middle class, so slightly below middle class, that don't realize that they qualify for help because they think it's only for the indigent.
Right.
And that may not be the case, because let's be honest, it doesn't matter what income bracket you're in. Sometimes we can use some help.
Yeah. You're exactly right. And the only time we really turn people down is when it doesn't align with the policy and it's not access to care related. So we've had people ask for I'm trying to think of a good example. It's been so long. Someone asked for help once, like for a moving van so they could move away to college. Well, that just doesn't fit, right? Like it has nothing to do with your health care.
Right.
And we couldn't really, if we can figure out a way to tie it to health care, we will so that we can help. But we just couldn't with that
It's
one.
not
right?
impacting the quality of life,
Exactly.
basically.
If we can't find a way to connect it, then we can't cover it. But other than that, we'll help people with anything they need help with, especially as it relates to their health care.
Steve and I both have a close friend that's a patient that went to you guys because his whole thing was getting back and forth from doctor's visits, appointments, things like that. And he needed to get a car, worked on his credit for a long time, did a lot of stuff, and then appealed to you guys. And y'all helped him actually with that limited amount for the year to help put down
Towards a down payment.
yeah,
Wow.
that's exactly right. And it's huge. It's been completely life-changing for him.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, you might not normally think of a vehicle as like an access to care issue, but it is because it helps you get to appointments, just like you said. So if we can figure out a way to tie it to that, we will, because if you need the help, that's what we're here for.
But that's really eye-opening when we're talking about access to care, and such a popular term used within this charity/nonprofit space. But things that you didn't think of, like I didn't think of a mini fridge being as access to care,
Right.
or a down payment on a car. You're
Right.
literally thinking like, oh, they're going to pay for maybe for Uber or something. No, I mean you're paying for a lot of different things.
Right.
That's
It's a
amazing.
quality of life changer.
It is, yeah.
Which is what y'all are there to do.
Right, and that's part of our mission statement is to help with the quality of life, education of people with bleeding disorder. So,
That's great.
and then getting back to my list. I know.
But wait, there's more.
I know we cover like one thing and then we get into that, but so a scholarship program is another service that we offer, and that's for anybody again diagnosed with a bleeding disorder or a parent or guardian of a minor with a bleeding disorder. So if you're a parent who has a small child and you're wanting to go back to college or go to college for the first time, we provide scholarships, and
That's
we have
amazing.
a couple different levels. There's and I should say also that we get grant support from the Wilson Foundation for that scholarship program. But yes, there's a policy for that too. So we do one for people who attend in four-year college. In the state of Louisiana, we're able to give the most money for those scholarships. But we also do the non-traditional scholarships, and that can be a vocational school, graduate school. So those are a little less, but we will still give scholarships for those types of post high school programs as
Yeah,
well.
I didn't know that part either. So that's huge.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, college is just getting more and more expensive. So, I mean, if there's hemophiliacs in the community, they really should be taking advantage of these opportunities.
Right.
I mean, and apply. I mean,
Right.
if I would have known, I would have applied when I was in college. I don't know if y'all had the scholarship 20 years ago.
Right. Well, I wasn't around 20 years ago. I've only been here 3 years, but
So getting back to that too, and I don't want to jump off topic with
that's
LHF, but how did you get connected to LHF in the first place, and how did that intermingling happen? Like, how did you end up?
yeah, so my son Max is 7 now, and he was diagnosed at birth with severe hemophilia A. I knew that I was a carrier. I have a 13-year-old son as well, and he does not have hemophilia. But when I was pregnant with him, I got tested because it ran in my family. My uncle had it. I had a nephew who had been diagnosed at that point. So when Max was born and diagnosed, I started to get involved with LHF just as a community member,
Right.
going to events. I wanted to get more involved, so I joined the board. At the time when Max was really young, LHF kind of seemed to be struggling, I'll be honest. When just as a community member going to the events, it just kind of seemed like there was some disorganization. I really thought that they probably just needed some help, and I wanted to be, I didn't want to be somebody just complaining, oh, they're so unorganized, like this, that, I want to do something about it. So I got involved in the board. At the same time, a few other community members kind of had the same impression that I did and the same thoughts as I did. They saw that there was a need for some more help. They joined the board as well. So we kind of as a team started to make some changes. We were hoping for the better. And as that happened, the previous ED left. She decided to put in her 2 weeks notice and left for another job opportunity. So when that happened and that position became available, I was on the board and thought, I think I can do this. I was previously an educator. I had been an educator for 16 years. I'd been a teacher first, then a school counselor, and then my last 6 years were as a specialist. And I went to various schools in the school system and worked with special kids who had drug, alcohol, and violence prevention problems. And I knew, even though I had not like ever run a nonprofit before, I knew that that skill set would transfer and that I had skills in there and in my experience that I could use to my advantage. And I knew I would have to do a lot of learning, but I felt like I could handle it, so I convinced the board to hire me. They did, and that was 3 years ago. So,
Good call.
yeah, here we are today. Yeah.
I mean, you can tell that your heart's in the right place, but working with special students that are in need and taking this on. But I mean, another important lesson, I guess, at least for maybe some of the viewers, would be active in your community. You never know where it may go. And in the grand scheme of things, we're just trying to make a better place for all of us in this space. So, I mean, that's awesome.
I'm really glad you said that too, because it's kind of like a push that I've been on lately, because I feel like with treatment being what it is today, so good and so progressive, and people are not having as many problems as they once did. There are a lot of people who don't feel that they need the community as much anymore. But my kind of big line to them is, but the community may need you,
that's good.
you may have a lot to offer to people who
Really good.
don't have the level of education that you do, or don't have the finances that you do, or whatever the case may be. Don't just think you need to be an active part of the community if you need something. We want you to be an active part of the community regardless. If you're in this community, you're in it. So please come be an active part of it, because you never know what you could offer to somebody else.
Absolutely.
No, I totally agree with that. And I tell ladies all the time, especially now, the new hot topic of the last year or two have been women in hemophilia.
Yep.
And I've been telling them, like, thank you for putting in the work, because I know it was hard. They were not getting diagnosis.
Yeah.
They were not getting treated. And now that they are, they're pioneering the way for the rest of the ladies, especially like young people like my daughter that may or may not be affected, but time will tell.
Right.
She is followed up with the Hemophilia Center, but it's just one of those things where I would hate for her to need treatment and be denied. But the way that she's going to be able to get treatment is these people that forged the way. And it's kind of like, even within ourselves, we're in this community. We try to be active in the community. And though I don't normally have to reach out for help, I've been pretty self-sufficient. It's like, hey, you know what? I understand that there is a need. We try to help out when we can. But we also meet other people and learn that, man, it spans such a wide group of people,
Right.
and from every walk of life, and there's definitely some people that's truly in need, and they need places like LHF that are able to help them along their way.
Right. You're exactly right.
Yeah, advocating for the patients is I know we've got a friend in Chicago. It's a rep up there for a specialty pharmacy, but he always talks about, you need to be your biggest advocate. When we first met in the last couple of years, I think it was one of the dinners, but the more we talked, the more I could tell how passionate you were about the
Yeah.
community and the impact that you could have.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably bigger already than you realize. That's why we're trying to drag you on here.
No, thank you. I appreciate that.
But anything we can ever do to help along the way is we're going to do it.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
What are some of the other, and I don't want to jump around, but
okay.
I am curious because what are some of the other primary areas other than hemophilia? Can you list some of, because I know there's people out there that'll be like, okay, well, this probably isn't, maybe a bleeding disorder, but it's outside of the spectrum of
Right.
what they work inside of.
So any von Willebrand's is the next big one. Of course, hemophilia A and hemophilia B. Von Willebrand's is actually the most common bleeding disorder, more common than either one of the hemophilias. So we help people with von Willebrand's disease a lot. And it's actually like concurrent with hemophilia a lot as well. We find a lot of dual diagnosis in patients. So, and any factor deficiency. So they're super rare, like factor 2, factor 5, any kind of factor deficiency would qualify as a bleeding disorder. Any platelet disorder, Glanzmann's is another ultra rare bleeding disorder that I've been learning a lot about recently, and it causes a lot of problems for those patients that I just didn't know about before. But basically, anybody who is seen at the treatment center for bleeding and clotting disorder, you are part of our community.
Do you deal with many? I know this is so random too, but do you deal with sickle cell?
So sickle cell is on like another side of the center. When I say the center, I'm talking about the Hemophilia Treatment Center, the Louisiana Center for Bleeding and Clotting Disorders.
Yeah.
They have sickle cell patients. The only reason that we don't serve sickle cell patients currently is because their 340B and their grant money is totally separate. So we can't use the grant money that we receive for sickle cell. There are just
Okay, so
strict
it's
rules about
specific.
that.
Okay.
Yeah. But they are seen at the clinic. And it's one of those things that I expect to evolve in the future because the National Bleeding Disorders Foundation has recently expanded. You guys may know about that. They were previously the
Yeah.
National Hemophilia Foundation. They changed their name to Bleeding Disorders. Yeah, NBDF. I'm training myself to say that.
Yeah.
I'm
There's all these
training myself.
acronyms.
We're still.
Or
We're
it came up in conversation one day. He's like, "Who are they?" It was like, "Oh, well, they used to be
Right.
HFA." It's like, "Oh, them."
And
Yeah.
thankfully too, they're good about putting on their website. Like
Yeah.
whenever I get an email, it's like previously.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of going to be part of their long-term plan is to bring
Good.
sickle cell in because they're a very underserved community.
Yes.
That's why I bring it up.
Yeah, so stay tuned. I think that's the way we're moving, and hopefully those, we can. I can't change the laws, but maybe the laws will change, and I can certainly advocate for that and impact the laws.
Well, I mean, there's Capital Days coming up that y'all are helping advocate for people with bleeding disorders.
We'll be there for that.
And depending on when this airs, it might have already passed. But this LHF is definitely taking an active role in advocating for people like us.
Yes.
And I'm sorry for skipping around a little bit, but earlier when we were talking about the service you offer, I mean, we were on scholarships. I believe you have more.
Yeah, advocacy is one of those services. So I'm glad you brought it up. And one of the ways we advocate is through our local advocacy day, which takes place at the state capitol. We do a training the night before at a hotel. We have dinner. We talk about like talking to legislators and what you should and shouldn't say, do's and don'ts. Really, it's about making people feel comfortable because people can feel very intimidated walking in to talk to somebody who's in an important position of power like a congressman. But what's really important to know is that they're just people. They put their pants on one leg at a time, just like we do. And you shouldn't be afraid to talk to them. So we do a little bit of that. And then if there's any specific bill or legislation that we're advocating for in that session, sometimes for, sometimes against, we'll talk about that. But the bulk of what we do that day is we have a table set up in the rotunda of the Capitol. We're just trying to educate people about bleeding disorders and about LHF and the services we provide to the community. Try to make some connections with some important people that are walking through. We also make important connections with the other people that are in the rotunda sometimes because there have been like EMS services. So we connected with them about like, hey, let's come and educate your EMS technicians about what to expect if they ever encounter a hemophilia patient. So they're all kind of like cool things that happen on Advocacy Day. But we also advocate on the federal level as well. I just got back, as a matter of fact, this weekend was in Washington, D.C., participating with NBDF. I've started to bring my two sons along with me because my 7-year-old he has hemophilia, and my 13-year-old is his supporter, and he advocates for his brother. So they're just starting to kind of get into it. My 13-year-old's really into it. The 7-year-old is a little bored still, but it's awesome for him to be exposed and just be hearing kind of what's going on. But we also bring community members to that. So we brought 2 community members this year, give them the opportunity to go and advocate for themselves, like you said, empower them to go talk to legislators about the important issues. Yeah.
I mean, that's so important because this is going to pave the way for the quality of healthcare that we're going to have. And just a little anecdotal type story. I mean, this is how rare the situation is, or disease states. I'm a pharmacist. I was formerly trained in medicine. We I don't think we spent any time on hemophilia in pharmacy school. And one day we were talking about strokes and myocardial infarctions and things of that nature. And I asked the question, it's like, okay, well, if you had a hemophiliac patient and they had a stroke, and normally you would use some sort of drug that's going to break a clot, would you still use it? And instead of answering me with the knowledge that she knew, she goes, when are you ever going to run across a hemophiliac? That's what the teacher told me. I literally
Wow.
pulled my medic alert out of my shirt. I was like, because I am one. That's why I'm curious.
Right.
And she thought I was lying, and it blew my mind that, man, we don't have enough data on ourselves, and we're never going to get the funding for the research of things if we don't advocate for
I
ourselves.
was not expecting you to say that.
But
I thought
but
you
you
was
got to
going
think about it.
say
A
something totally
hemophilia
different.
B, we make a quarter of the hemophiliacs
Right.
in the world.
Right.
So a quarter. So within the state of Louisiana, maybe 100 of us, maybe
Right.
150.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
there's
pretty
not that
rare.
many
I've only
people.
met a few, really.
Yeah.
It's
You know how
not
rare
nice.
our disease state is? You know what day is ultra rare disease day? It's like leap day.
Yes.
Because they only care about us once every 4 years.
It was the 29th this year. It is normally the 28th. They do it every year.
Yeah.
That's
The end of
really funny.
February. Yeah.
But it's just if we don't bring awareness to the situation, we're gonna be lost, kind of like the sicklers,
Right.
where I mean it's such a prevalent disease state, but they just don't have enough people wanting to stand up and advocate. And I know in the past Tulane has been really pushing for that, because I know they're trying to get new treatments, because I mean, the same treatments they taught us in school was the same treatments they were using for 20 plus years.
Right.
So, from my understanding, there's a bunch of new treatments out or in the pipeline.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to learning more about them too, which has been what's so great about the dinners. So like when CSL and when they're doing that education piece, I know Steven and I were attending really just to hear more. It's always an awesome meal, but it's and it's good to see everybody, but trying to learn as much as we can,
Yeah.
just to get a better idea, because there are so few of us, the nines that are severes, running around that don't run into each other that often.
And as a former educator, for me, education is so important. And I attend all of the dinners, well, most of them. Someone from LHF is always at one of the dinners, but I can hear the same program over and over again and take something new from it every time. So I just encourage people to take advantage of that, because it's free, like you said, a free meal and free education. Even if it's a program you've heard before, you can still learn something new. It could be a different presenter, or, just a different time of day, or you could be in a different headspace
Yeah.
and learn something new every time you hear it. So
I know I joined in. I don't know if it was sponsored by LHF, but I joined in on one of the webinars for the new factor 8 gene therapy, and it answered so many questions that I thought I had a good grasp of the data. It's like, no, they had so much more data, and I feel that with all these new therapies coming out, I've always been one that I don't like to tell people what they need to take.
right.
I'll give them the information that I have. So it's kind of the same thing. It's like, if I can't educate myself, I can't educate them. But I advocate for everyone to get educated. It's like, look, before you decide, listen, find out what the
Right.
data is showing. Find out if this is something that you want to do. Find out if you do want to do this, does it affect any future therapies, things of that
Right.
nature. So it's kind of one of those things where you these informational dinners or webinars are so important as far as education goes, but what's more important is the patient themselves getting educated before they make such
Right.
huge decisions.
Right. And we don't encourage patients one way or the other either. We just serve as a resource. So if anybody did have questions, then we could certainly point them in the right direction. If they had a question about a new gene therapy or any kind of medication, again, we don't advise people on what type of treatment. That's between them and their healthcare provider, but we're certainly a resource. So we could point them in the right direction. Here's where you can go to find answers about this product or this product. So people can reach out to us if they have questions.
That's great. That's great. And when you hold these webinars or dinners, I mean, the people that make the products, they give you the information. So you now have contact information if you might have come up with a question after the fact, and you can
Right.
reach out. But obviously, if you don't remember what that is, reach out to LHF, and they can
Right.
get you in touch
Right.
with that company.
Exactly. Yeah, we
which is
certainly
great.
can. Yeah.
Oh, that's really good. What are some of the things that you're looking forward to for LHF? I know we talk about the obviously the Capital Day, but what are some of the other ones this year that you guys are doing that you're looking forward to?
So my favorite thing every year is camp. We do a week long summer camp for kids ages 7 to 17, and the kids that we take at camp are anybody within that age range who either has a diagnosed bleeding disorder, has a sibling with a diagnosed bleeding disorder, or has a parent with a diagnosed bleeding disorder. And we added, it was always patients and siblings, but we added that third category because at some point those kids are going to be taking care of their parents who have a bleeding disorder, and they may not have the bleeding disorder themselves, but they're going to need to know what it means and what it entails in order to take care of their aging parent at some point.
Yeah.
So we wanted them to be a part of it too. They're already kind of a part of the community if their parents are coming to all the meetings.
Yeah.
So they need to be exposed, and they need the education and the support and the community that camp provides. And if we can start making those connections, those kids can start making them that young,
Yeah.
and they just carry that on through their lifetime. It's really cool and really powerful. We have a group of kind of core camp counselors that comes every year, and last year they kind of remarked like we can feel this community of kids like coming together because the first time that I hosted camp as the ED was post COVID. So my first 2 years we had virtual camp because it was COVID time. So we
geez,
couldn't
yeah.
we couldn't do it in person. So this particular group of kids has been together going on 3 years now, and it's really cool to just feel the way they are kind of gelling together and developing their own little community. And they see each other not just at camp, but at our annual meeting, at our friends and family day. So they have lots of opportunities throughout the year to kind of connect and strengthen those friendships. So that's
a lot
my
of
that's my
chemistry.
favorite thing. Yeah, that we do every year.
That becomes an extension of your family. So,
Yeah.
it's
Very much so.
Well, as a person that actually went to these camps growing up, I could tell you, I mean, they were a blast. I mean, the way we build community. I mean, I'm an adult now. I'm 30 years removed from the camp, and I have run into at least 2 or 3 people that I went to camp with. Didn't recognize them because we're adults now. Found out we both had the same bleeding disorder, and then I realized, like, wait, you're X, Y, or Z. You know, it's like, wow. I was like, we used to go to camp, and it was like, wow. It's like, you don't realize, and once you build that connection, you don't realize just because we had the same bleeding disorders. A lot of the ones I run across, and if we known each other from the past, I mean, they just. It's almost like a trust, a bond right then and there. You know,
It is,
it's
yeah.
just like,
Really good.
wow. It's like, oh well, if you're him, I ran into one like, in the wild working as a retail pharmacist, and he goes, "Does this interfere with my hemophilia?" And I just, what? Like another hemophiliac, and then we realized who he was, and it was like, you didn't tell me you're the family that the mom had the restaurant by the hospital. I'm like, yeah, and
That's so
we
cool.
keep in touch now.
Yeah.
You know, and even though that's we probably didn't keep in touch for 25 years,
Right.
and now it's amazing, and it's I think if you have children or patients that are available during that week that it's held each year, take advantage of it. It's a
Yeah.
great time.
Right.
Great time for the kids. I knew I grew up sheltered in a bubble. You know, you might as well put plastic wrap on me or something. I was not allowed to do anything, and camp was my escape to
Yeah.
be quote unquote normal.
Yeah. And it's, again, free.
And it's free.
For the kids who come. It's offered at no expense to the families. We have a full medical staff on hand. The camp is actually held in Burton, Texas, and it's at a facility that specializes in medical camps.
Oh, wow.
So we're one
that-
of the many groups that goes.
Is that East Texas?
Camp for All is the name of it. It's right outside of Houston.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
So far.
Yeah.
My
So
nephew, he's been wanting to go, but maybe we can go together this year.
yeah.
That'd be
Yeah,
neat.
we do a charter bus. We bus the kids because it's a long
Well,
drive for
he
every
lives in-
family
he
to
lives in
make.
Houston.
So, oh, okay.
And he's never done a camp. He's a hemophiliac. He's never done a
Okay.
camp. And he expressed that he wanted to go, but my sister would feel more comfortable if he had a chaperone.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
someone that knows.
Yeah.
And maybe that's something I can
Yeah.
help out with.
Yeah.
Let us know. Let us
do it.
know.
But
great.
I wanted to mention too, with that and with your question about what I'm excited about. So this year we're offering a new program, which is a family camp. We haven't done that before. I went to a camp conference, a hemophilia camp conference last year, and they did a lot of talking about family camps, and got my camp director was there with me, and got back afterwards, and I was like, we have to do a family camp because we have so many things already on the schedule, but it was like, we got to do it.
So that's like the entire family.
So it's the entire family. So it's going to take place in September. It's a weekend long. It's not a full week. It's just a weekend, but the entire family comes. So it can be younger kids, since the parents will be there. We don't have to have really an age limit on that. And yeah, I think it's going to be really cool. We're doing it here at Med Camps of Louisiana, which is in the Monroe area. It's similar to our Camp for All in that it's a facility that specializes in medical conditions.
You have dates set for that already?
Yeah, I want to say it's the 26th, the weekend of September 26th, but don't quote me on that because I don't have my calendar right in front of me. But I know it's in September. Okay. And it's on our website as well, lahemo.org. So families can go and look that information up. And we'll put out email notification and social media blast when it starts getting closer and registration opens up. We'll only be able to take a limited number of families because we have a limited number of space. There are only 10 cabins, and I think it's like 10 people, so we'll be putting 2 families per cabin. But it's going to be really cool, I think. And we have a lot of kids that I know of that don't come to camp because they're just scared. And I totally get it. I was that kid when I was little. Like, I would be terrified to go a week away from my parents. Oh, sorry. But we're hoping that this will bring some of them in, if they can attend camp with their family, get to know our camp staff because our camp staff will be there. Maybe that will kind of warm them up and make them feel safer and more comfortable coming to our family camp. Our kids' camp next summer.
That's going to be really good and therapeutic for a lot of people that don't realize it.
Yeah, for sure. I think so.
And what I always preach about, like that big brother mentality, not talking about like Russia spying on us, but like older sibling.
Big brother, yeah.
But, an older sibling that we may not all have. I mean, if these younger kids can go to camp, they can see people in their shoes just slightly older, and they may be able to pass on a wealth of information that is going to make them feel better. It's like, oh, I'm not the only one living through this. Because a lot of, like you said, Max is 7. Yeah. But he's the one affected. His older brother is not. So he can be around other kids that are affected, and they can be like, yeah, I was in your shoes. Maybe you don't want to go so hard in soccer. Maybe play a different sport or things of that nature. Meeting other people in the same shoes and understanding how they made their decisions, will help you make better decisions.
Yeah. And it's the same for like the siblings. Like my older son Leo does not have hemophilia, but that comes with its own set of
I was
like
going to ask that question in a second. That was coming through my brain.
Like, there's so much attention focused on Max with, I changed my whole career because of his diagnosis, like I know those kind of things weigh on him sometimes. And to be able to be around other kids who have that same experience is also meaningful, because he can connect with other siblings who are having the same experience. He has his own concerns, when Max, he hasn't been through very much, thankfully, because of the medication he's on. His disease is very well managed. But early on, before he got on this medication, when he was a little baby, he had a port surgery. He did have a few things, and that was tough on Leo. He was only like 6 or 7 at the time, and it was hard for him to watch his baby brother go through that and not have the vocabulary to really talk about it or be able to process it. I knew, like as his mom, that he was kind of going through it. So for him to have the experience with other kids as well, that's equally as important. So, yeah.
Look how amazing it is that we're talking about a severe A that has a well-managed disease.
Yeah, right.
I mean, when I was
inhibitors, he has inhibitors.
When I was growing up, if you were a severe A, you could be 10 years old with a fused knee, or in a wheelchair as a teenager, and now it's they're living life. I mean, this is, and it's all due to the great work of all the people behind the scenes, your healthcare workers, your nonprofits, and these people that are bringing attention to the disease state and helping advance the technology that we have today.
Yeah, and heat-treated products, you don't have to worry about.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a whole different animal.
Right.
Wait, so he has an inhibitor?
Correct. He does.
Okay, how did that process take place?
I'm not sure, like, how he got the inhibitor. Yeah.
That is scary.
So he had his first bleed, his first and only bleed, actually, when he was about 8 months old, when he was just learning how to walk. This was before he had started prophylaxis or any kind of treatment because he was just a baby. He wasn't doing anything, you know?
Yeah.
And when he started kind of pulling up on furniture and moving around like babies do at 8 months old, he had an ankle bleed. So he went in, he got treated, and they decided to put a port in at that time because now that he's bleeding, he needs to be on prophylaxis. So since he's a baby, going to do a port. Than 4 than 8 when he after he had his port. But we did ITI for about a year after he got his port in, and his inhibitor was just very aggressive, so it did not go away. It just got stronger, just fought harder and got higher. And when he made 2, then we switched him to Hemlibra, which is what he's on now, and it's worked great for him.
So
Knock on wood.
So that you had a lot of issues with the port. I know a lot of people dealt with infection.
We did not,
Okay, that's good.
thankfully. Yeah, we just the port surgery was an issue. It was pretty complicated because of the inhibitor. We were in the hospital about 2 weeks to get that bleeding to stop after the surgery, so that was a little stressful. But we did, we got through that, and once it healed, it was fine. We didn't have any issues with the port, thankfully. And
That's really
the
good.
removal was a piece of cake. It was much different than the port removal. I know.
Either way, sounds
Can you
scary
imagine?
to me.
I
Well,
know.
Anything connected directly to your heart.
I'm
Right.
a child of the '80s. They're like, oh yeah, maybe you should think about getting a part. And then my mom decides, no, we'll just stick with the sticking. And I remember they're like, oh yeah, you don't want that. It gets infected all the time. I'm like, wait, why didn't you say that the
Yeah,
first time
yeah.
around? But, it's kind of crazy. But no, once again, you have a severe with inhibitors. That's a child that's active. And she just said it only had 1 bleed in his life. That's amazing.
It is
I would.
amazing.
I was back in the PRN days, the as needed doses,
Right.
and I was at the hemophilia center 3
Yeah.
times a month at least.
Right.
Because there was so much fear associated with doing the shots in general.
I was just a bad kid.
Yeah, and my nephew is
We're a
15.
bad kid.
You were
not a bad
active, I'm
Active.
sure, yeah. My nephew is 15, so about 7 years older than my son, and it's changed that much in their lifetimes, right? So they're both on the same medication now. He's severe with inhibitors also, but the first part of his life was spent, they were in the hospital a lot. So
And Libra's working well for him.
yes, for both of them. Yeah.
That's good.
That's great.
And I'm not here to, advocate for any.
No, I understand.
product, but
everybody's
yeah.
so different, and we're not advocating
Right.
one way or
No,
another.
I
But I
know
did
you're
want to
not.
make sure, okay, that is working well for him. Obviously,
It
so
is,
that's
yeah,
great.
yeah.
It's working.
It's
Yeah.
really
Good.
cool. And I
Good.
know, yes, everyone's experience is different, but for him, it's been a game changer for sure.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
definitely not here to advocate for
We're
a
not
specific.
we're not here. Just,
No,
we're
I
not
know.
here
Yeah.
one way or another. But I'm glad that it's working for him. That you've been able to
Yeah,
find
it's really
something that's
cool.
stabilized. So
But that's
Yeah.
also the cool thing is that each family's gonna have to decide what's the best one for them.
Yeah,
and now we
absolutely.
have a dozen or plus options in each disease state, and before you really didn't have to.
Right.
I
two
mean,
options.
when I was growing
It
up,
was
it was like
just-
Mono 9 or Alpha 9, I
Yeah,
guess.
an Alpha 9.
So, but now we have so many, and
Yeah.
and I made the decision on which one I wanted to be on, and it's been working well for me. And something going from sticking yourself, in my case, every 3 days to once every 10 days.
Right.
It's amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a mild inconvenience at that.
Right.
And that's why sometimes I'm a little hesitant to try something new. It's like, well, I'm pretty good at what I'm doing right now.
Right,
It's,
right.
it's
Have
so
any
much better than
problems?
the last 15 years,
been
Yeah.
me
So I mean, but it's it all falls back to making our voices heard and getting better access to health.
Right.
How do you feel like? And Max is your younger son.
Yes.
So how do you think Max processes? Has he been through a lot as far as now? How old is he now?
He's 7.
Okay, so he's still pretty young.
Mm-hmm.
But I know I didn't do this very often, but I did have a couple of friends that did this. It's when they had a sibling, because I was the oldest, didn't have any other sibling until I was 8, almost 9 years old. But when they've had an older and or younger sibling that did not have, there was a lot of like, why me?
Right.
In the processing.
Yeah.
So has he, if you think he's dealt with that a lot
He's had
internally?
a little bit of that, but not too much. And that's so he gets a shot once a week, and we do once a week because I like the routine of it. I don't have to think, is this the week? You know, we could go longer if
You
we
just
wanted
pick
to.
the day of the week.
But
and
yes,
it's Sunday.
I prefer the weekly routine. So he gets it once a week. He does really well with it now, but from like ages 2 to 4, it was a struggle.
I'm sure.
He finally kind of got through his head that like I'm gonna have to do this, you know, and he finally kind of got used to it and realized if he didn't fight as much, it wouldn't hurt as much and it wouldn't be as traumatic, you know. If you don't fight, then I don't have to hold you down, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, we've been through all that, but he's doing fine with it now. He knows what hemophilia is. He knows that he has it. He knows he has to take his shot or that, you know, he will have problems. My big concern is that he doesn't really know what that means, right? He doesn't know what a hemophilia problem feels like on it, but I that's my only concern for him right now is that he doesn't really know what a bleed feels like or like really just what it means to be worried about an injury because everything's been fine. He just lost a tooth this weekend. Not an issue at all. You know, he bumped his head on a porcelain sink in a hotel room. Just a baby bruise, you know.
Yeah.
So he every now and then has with the shots like, why me? Why do I have to do this? Why do I have to have
Right.
hemophilia?
Why
But
isn't my
not
brother doing this? Why am I the one?
right. But not that much, and we just kind of talk through it.
That's
when,
because
when it comes up.
that's good parenting on your part then, because you've been training him and then educating him at the same time. It makes all the difference in the world having that support structure around you to be able to not just support you through those moments, but to be able to process through what's going on,
Right.
what could go on. And for me, it was always, I was very aware from going even to the clinic, to Tulane, to the HCC to understand it could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
Whatever I'm going through, people are going through more.
But
Kids are
it's
going through
kind of
more.
also like silver linings, right? So it's like you get the news, oh, you're hemophiliac, severe inhibitors. But then it's like he doesn't know the damage and the trauma because everything's so great now that he's healthy.
To me,
He's
that's an
he's
answer to prayer, though,
kid.
for
I mean,
the next generation.
absolutely. So it's like if we can get more people like that, I mean, it's just wow. I mean, that's the future.
Yeah.
It went from being a crippling disease to now being just something that we can maintain
Right.
and just treat and maintain and just live a fairly normal life.
Right.
And that's all we ever hope for, really.
Yeah.
I mean, that's almost as good as a cure as any, really. It's not a cure, but it's a treatment that you can live a normal life. And I think that's just great that he's able to. He's grown up in the right time, you know.
But we were both of us are extremely blessed in that, where we have a lot of friends that are not, have a family, married, kids, like our you know, and again, it comes back to the family and the support structure that we had. It also goes back to like Karen Wolf, to the HTC, to Dr. Lessinger, to the people that both of us, and we still are at the clinic. So when I do
Right.
my annual, that's where I go.
Yeah.
Because I trust them. Jennifer Brillo, like that's
Yeah.
family for me.
Right.
So that's all an extension of our
Yeah.
families. But that support structure too, they were amazing. And I know for Steven, he was in there physically all the time because he was
Yeah.
close by.
Yeah, I mean, just about every week growing up, just because doing things I shouldn't do, riding a bike when my mom told me I couldn't, and you know, being one of 50 cousins that were roughly close in age, and we play around
Right.
a lot. So I was injury prone, but having that support really helped. But you know, also, I mean, I'm lucky to be born in the early 80s, where even though we had that blood taint issue, I mean, if it was a couple years prior, I mean, there's a highly likely I would have been affected
Right.
versus
I was born in
Yeah.
80. You're 84.
84.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, we were affected, but not to the extent that people born in the 70s and prior were. And then, you know, but now we were lucky that we have all these treatments available to us now, but this new generation with gene therapy is only going to get better. You have sub-Q products that are for convenience, especially. I totally understand for having a small child wanting easier access to the medicine, easier to give it to them,
Right.
because sticking a kid that's going to want to wave his
Yeah.
arms around is not very
Especially
easy.
boys. We're not making it
Yeah,
easy.
but
That's
hey,
what
now
it
they're
is.
treating girls. So,
Yeah.
but it's just one of those things where I mean, we're kind of in the golden age where it's getting so much better, and now being born with hemophilia is not the same sentence it was
Right.
20, 30, 40 years ago.
Well, and that's part of the message that we try to instill in the community, and part of like what we try to do at LHF in terms of empowering people, is pointing all that out to them, and letting them know, like, and not to say, you could have it worse, because I don't want to diminish people's experiences or people's pain, but we are kind of in a golden age, and it's not going to help you to dwell on the the bad parts of your circumstances, right? We
Absolutely.
acknowledge
Yeah.
that, but also let's look at what we got good going for us, and that's what I try to instill in my son, but what I try to instill in the whole community as well, is that kind of message of empowerment. Don't dwell on all the things that are wrong and all the things that are negative about this disease. Let's focus on the positive things, and that we're in this time that we are, where medication is so good and so progressive, and just keep moving forward and looking towards the positive, and I think that will help empower the whole community.
Absolutely. And it's being active because I know it was before you came on, but it was probably 5+ years ago. The camp reached out they had a career day and they asked if I could be one of the guests. And, it's so important for these young people to have role models that not only are just, anyone can look up to like a stellar athlete,
Right.
but we're really not in the same shoes, right? So yeah, I want to be LeBron James, but you don't know what damage he's done to his
Right,
body.
right.
And so having someone, and I gladly helped out when I was available to do so, but it's just, these kids, you need to be more active so that they have someone else to look up to. So you can see another hemophiliac like ourselves, that we're working, we're in the community, we understand, but even telling them our story and how we came about to be, because I'll let you know that hemophilia kind of guided me to my career path.
Right.
It made me be more attentive, and it made me understand that, hey, I need to take control of my life and my decisions so I can be an adult and take care of my disease state. And I can only do that with insurance and things of that nature. So I need a career. And it made me
Right.
realize, it made me grow up a lot sooner than I should have. But at the same time, that's a blessing, because not many 18 or 19-year-olds are that motivated, and maybe sharing a story of how hemophilia motivated me to make the decisions I made might motivate another kid that's in high school. It's like, I really don't know what I want to do.
Right.
Maybe I want to be a D1 athlete, or a cheerleader, or a musician. And then, I mean, and not to say that they can't do that, but
Right.
having someone say, hey, I thought of the same things. I was really talented, or this. But at the same time, as I realized, if I did that, would I have insurance and things of that nature? We got to take
Right.
that all into account, and it really made me grow up and make decisions that weren't just based on wants, but also based on necessity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And those are some of the educational programs that we offer. Like at our annual meeting, we have programs for teenagers. The transition to adulthood is a really big deal, And some of the things that we offer at LHF are not just LHF offerings. So I'll give you an example. Just recently in early February, I took two teenagers to Yeti, which is a program put on by the Pacific Northwest Bleeding Disorders Foundation, and it's a teen empowerment program. And they invite people from all over the country to come bring their teenagers to their program, and it's for kids with bleeding disorders and siblings of kids with bleeding disorders. So every year we try to take two teenagers, at least one or two, to that program. So there are things like that we do at LHF as well. That, like, it might not be a program we're putting on ourselves, but we're trying to do outreach for our community to get them involved in those things that are available to them all throughout the country.
No, that's great. What are some of the things that, whether it's patients or companies, specialty pharmacies like the one we're connected, like, what are some of the things that we can do to help LHF and what they're doing moving forward?
Definitely just support in term financially, obviously, because we're nonprofit, so we don't have an actual income. We rely on donations, grants, those kind of things to fund us. So that's one thing for sure, one important thing. involvement, just being involved, and like what you're doing today is great, helping us to get the word out. Exposure is a big part, I think, of kind of getting our mission out there and our organization out there, and just bleeding disorders awareness. That does a lot in terms of bringing more volunteers and more supporters to us. So those kind of things, any group that you can put me in front of. For example, I go talk to like Rotary clubs and BNI groups, which is like a business organization.
Small business organization.
Yeah. Any kind of group that I could get in front of to tell them about LHF, our mission, what we do, advance bleeding disorders awareness would be helpful. You can help in that way. Just volunteering. LHF is a staff of 2 people, myself and Danielle Rowley, who's our program director and is amazing. So it's not a lot of us to go around, and we do a lot. So any kind of time, time that you have available, we'll take it. We can put you. I mean, we have things that need to be done as small as like shredding. Like we have a huge pile of documents that need to be shredded, filing, that kind of little stuff that is just time consuming, right? But even like a phone campaign, we had a volunteer come in one time and call everybody on our registration list who was not registered for an upcoming event, just to let them know, like, hey, we've got this event coming up. We really love to see you. And it increased our numbers tremendously for that event. So little things like that, anytime, even if you just have 30 minutes one day, we'll find something for you to do. Those little things, all the way to volunteering at an event and helping us with registration, helping put, decorations out, those kind of things, logistical things. Any of that can be helpful.
With a 2-person staff, that's
Correct.
It's a pretty daunting task to think about some of the events that y'all have coming up, and then just the registration process alone.
Right. Yeah.
Like, even if you had it all data driven, online emails, you still have to be able to process that.
Right. Well, Danielle's the logistics queen. She handles all that.
I'm thinking through it while
I gotta
I'm saying
give her credit.
Like,
yeah.
Okay, that's a lot of work.
Well, I think y'all doing a lot of good things. Your hearts are in the right place. So if there's any viewers out there, if you volunteer, help out, or financially help them, it's going to do good. It's helping people in a community. You see the direct people that it's helping, and it's, for what I can see, it's wonderful what you do in the community. I didn't realize that I've always heard LHF. I've been to some events. I didn't realize all the things y'all did, and just hearing it it's inspiring. We really want more people to get engaged and help.
Yeah, and we have lots of opportunities for it throughout the year. So we also have a newsletter. We do a print newsletter biannually and a monthly e-newsletter, so people can stay informed.
With that information, can you tell everyone, I know you gave the email address earlier, but the basic information?
Yeah, so our website is www.lahemo.org. We are also on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We're most active on Facebook, definitely, for social media. Our phone number is 225-291-1675. And then Danielle and I, my email is director@lahemo.org, and Danielle is outreach@lahemo.org. So people can call us, email us. If you go to the website, there's a contact form that you can get in touch with us that way. Social media, you could Facebook message us or just leave a comment, any way.
And we'll also try to connect some of the links to this podcast.
Yeah, great.
Thank you. Get that out there.
Appreciate that.
Where are y'all physically located at?
Our office is in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, in the Sherwood Forest area. We're off of Sherwood. Okay. But we serve the entire state of Louisiana. So if you live in Louisiana or receive treatment in Louisiana, because we have people who live in Mississippi who come to the treatment center because it's only an hour away. Yeah. So if you live or receive treatment in Louisiana, you're a part of our community. We don't have an official membership, it's not a paid membership or anything like that. All you have to do is sign up. And if you sign up, then you're a member. If we've never met you before, we are going to verify that you do in fact have a bleeding disorder. Because we have had people try to bring their cousins to stuff, But that's really the only membership process there is we're going to just verify that you do in fact have a bleeding disorder.
I wanted to make sure, because we're asking for volunteers, and if we don't know where to send them.
Yeah, no, please send them all.
No, thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me and allowing me to talk about it, Alicia.
We'll drag you back on here.
Yeah,
It's been
anytime.
great.
Anytime.
Great.
I'm happy to
Learned
do
a
it.
lot.
Good. Thank you
you.
guys.
Have a good one.
Thanks.